Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this beginner's guide for movement in Deadlock. The map can feel extremely large and complex when you first play the game, and I'm here to help you make the map feel a lot smaller and easier to overcome with a few easy movement tricks. Movement is not only crucial to move around on the map really fast, but also to have an advantage in combat over your enemies. So, the first thing to have in mind is that there is a running speed and a sprinting speed. Some heroes have the same sprint and running speed, but there are a lot of items that will buff sprinting speed more than movement speed. Therefore, when you get to the end game, they might have a much bigger sprinting speed than their movement speed. The difference is that sprint only happens out of combat. You don't have to press a button or anything. Your hero just starts sprinting after being out of combat for a little while. So if you have an item like, for instance, entering speed, you'll notice how it gives 1.4 movement speed increase, but another 2 meters per second sprint speed, meaning that when you're out of combat, you have now a 3.4 meters per second increased movement speed because you're sprinting, and in combat, it's 1.4. Some heroes like Bebop also have a added sprint speed by default, so he is also just easier to roam around the map even without items. Next up, we have stamina management. You'll notice here in the middle we have 3 stamina bars, and most heroes in Deadlock start with 3 stamina bars. Ivy starts with 4, and McGinnis and Medicta starts with 2. There are many ways of using stamina. The most simple ways is either a double jump or a dash. You can also dash sideways. And you can also dash downwards while you're in the air by double tapping control, like that. This is very useful if you are up in the air, you need to quickly descend into the ground. For instance, if you're gonna steal the mid-boss crystal, or just because you're taking a lot of damage and you don't want to be super exposed to the enemy team. There are also a few types of movements that do not require any stamina. One of them is sliding. And you'll notice that it's easier to slide downhills on slopes. You'll need a certain amount of speed to be able to slide. The other one is mantling. So whenever you run up to an obstacle and press your jump key, it mantles up and you notice how it does not use any stamina. If I try to jump up there instead, you notice that now I'm using stamina. So make sure that, for instance, let's say that you want to get up on this roof here. The most efficient way would be to move all the way up to this obstacle, press space once. See, now I mantled and didn't use any stamina. And then I double jump and I mantle again. You just need to hold space and it automatically mantles when you're close to an obstacle. It's also important to know that while you're in the air, you can only use 1 jump and 1 dash. So for instance, if I'm coming off the zip line here, I can use 1 jump and 1 dash. And that's it. The only exception is if you buy superior stamina, you'll notice how it increases the number of air dashes and air jumps that can be performed before landing from 1 to 2. So some really insane movement tech can only be done with superior stamina, and it's really good on heroes like Lash, for instance. But we're only going to go through all the stuff that you can do without items, because this is a beginner-focused guide. And there's a lot to do way before you even need to think about using superior stamina to do more advanced stuff. So now that we've covered the very basics, we're going to move on to the dash and all the different types of movement you can do with the dash. The most basic one that you'll probably be using the most is the dash slide. So because sliding requires a certain amount of momentum, the dash will help you reach this momentum. So for instance, you dash like this and you start sliding. And this can basically be done anywhere. When you're in the laning stage, you should be using this a lot to dodge damage from the enemies, or to quickly get behind cover. So instead of like running around this like so, you can dash and slide like this. It's also important to remember that sliding also gives you infinite ammo. So if you look at the middle, you see my ammo now. If I start sliding, I did not use ammo at all. And this is very crucial for some heroes that have small clip sizes and high fire rates. You should try to spam your sliding as much as possible. And that's obviously easier the higher your movement speed is. Because once you get in combat, you no longer have the sprint speed, which means you need to rely on having a high base movement speed to continuously slide while in combat. On some heroes this is easier, like Seven and Great Talon, because their movement speed scales with how much spirit power they have. So the second basic movement, other than the dash slide, is the dash jump. So the dash jump shows up as a blue flash on your stamina bar. See there? The difference between this one is that it uses 2 stamina bars instead of 1. And it gives you a lot more momentum and you travel much further than just with a simple dash slide. However, you have to be careful on when you use this because it's much easier to deplete your stamina. So it's on a situation basis. Sometimes it makes more sense to just do a dash slide, and sometimes it makes sense to do a dash jump. And once you've done a dash jump, you can also slide just like with a normal dash slide, which I'll show you now. So you dash, jump, and then slide. And this gives you a lot of momentum, so you can keep going like this too. As long as you have enough momentum, you can just keep sliding. So that is why with a dash jump slide, you can sometimes even do a small bunny hop while holding your slide button and you can keep going. See this? Another advantage of the dash jump is that it's the best way of getting diagonal momentum. And one of the uses for this is if you're, for instance, down here at the urn spot and you want to get up to this ledge. Normally, if you don't use a dash jump here, you would have to jump here and then double jump and then mantle. This is very slow and very clunky and probably not the most beneficial way of moving. Yes, you will use less stamina, but you also move much slower. If you do a dash jump into another jump, meaning you will be using 3 stamina bars, you can now go all the way up here like that without having to mantle, and you move much faster. You can also combo into another dash while in air if your goal is to have more forward momentum. So there will be a dash, jump into another dash, and then slide. Just bear in mind that this uses a lot of stamina and it's really hard to escape your enemies if you use up all your stamina. So sometimes if I'm fighting someone, I'm gonna try to escape and I notice that I'm running out of stamina. Instead of trying to keep running and get out in the open, I might try to hide for a bit like this until my stamina recharges and then try to dash slide away like this. So yeah, in the laning stage, you'll be definitely using the dash slide a lot as it only uses 1 stamina and it gets you around very fast. And you can even get into jumps and stuff while keeping your momentum. All right, now that we've covered the basic stuff, let's move it to the next level, which is the wall jump. So the wall jump is essentially you move towards a wall, and then when you jump, you have to press the opposite directional key. So for instance, if I'm going towards this wall and jumping, you have to press backwards like that, and you'll hear this boing sound, which represents that you just did a wall jump. So the cool thing about wall jump is that it actually does not use stamina at all, meaning that it's an excellent combo piece with a lot of other movements. For instance, you can do a wall jump into a double jump and you see you get a lot more air. Situations where this is super useful, I think the one I use the most is this one. So you'll notice that the secret shop here, there's always a lot of fighting here. Some people don't know is that there's actually a vent here. So one really useful way of escaping fights from here, you run towards the shop and you jump backwards, double jump, and you can escape through this vent. It's really cool, looks really smooth, and usually throws people off quite a bit, and it's not that hard to do. You can also wall jump by going more like angled towards the wall, but it just becomes harder to do. But you can definitely do it as well, like that. You just have to remember that you always have to press the opposing directional key compared to the surface. So for instance, if I do this, I have to press backwards. And if I'm running this way, I have to press left. Like that. Another pretty stylish move you can do is to go here. And you can get all the way up here, completely without anything more than just 1 stamina. Another usage of the wall jump that is pretty cool is that you can actually get on top of this one. Now this was not previously possible unless you had Warpstone, Majestic Leap or other items. Once they enabled wall jumping, you can now combo into a double jump. So you jump, wall jump and double jump and suddenly you mantle up here. And this is an excellent spot to do rollouts with Lash, for instance, because you have a lot of visibility If you play ult bebop, you can come from a very unexpected angle and you just have tons of momentum to like gank other lanes without them seeing you coming in. One thing that is a little bit hard about some of these jumps is that when you wall jump, sometimes you end up going too far away from the wall like this. And then in most cases, what you would do then is to dash to get back in. But the problem with that is that dash uses another stamina. So for instance, let's say I do this jump and then I go backwards, double jump, and then dash forward. See, now I had to use 2 staminas to do that. But the cool thing is you can actually do a heavy melee. So that is the final wall jump combo. That is the wall jump, jump into heavy melee. And what this does is that it cancels your momentum outwards. You heavy melee back into the ledge, which means that it now uses the mantle, which doesn't cost any stamina. Jump back. See that? Now I only used 1 stamina to get up here, even if I was all the way out there and would normally need a dash to get up here. So sometimes this can be very useful. Just think about all the different ways of using momentum to move without using stamina. Of course, you can get up here by doing this instead, but this is much harder to do. So sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where you are just further from the wall and you have no stamina left. Then a heavy melee can really save your ass. It's same here, like you want to get up on this one. You can always do that to just make sure that you get up. Next up, we have a zipline movement. Now the zipline is pretty straightforward. First of all, you're just moving forward here. And what most people do is that they jump off the zipline like this. The problem with jumping off the zipline like this, you lose a lot of momentum because the jump stops your momentum. But if you press crouch, you actually retain the momentum you have, and you can do some crazy unexpected rollouts, especially if you use the zipline speed boost. I'll show an example here. This is without the speed boost. I'm just ziplining back into lane, pressing control, and I can still dash and jump and slide. See, now I made it all the way here, and this was without using the speed boost at all. And that is simply because dashing creates a lot of momentum. And if you already have high momentum from before, because you pressed control off the zipline instead of jumping, it makes it go much further. Now, if we add the speed boost to this, you can get some crazy stuff. So now I'm speed boosting, right? Pressing control, dash, jumping. Look at me go. Now I'm all the way up in their tower. One of the really useful scenarios for this is in the very beginning of the laning stage. So what often happens is that, let's say you lose a fight in the beginning and the enemy is 20-30% health and they'll probably just be camping under their tower while healing up, or maybe they're greedy for some CS last hits because they know that you just died. And that's why this is really useful, because it might come as a super surprise that you're speeding in this quickly back to the lane. So let's say right now you can see that the green lane is all pushed up, but our blue lane is all pushed in. So if there's a fight happening somewhere around this area, it's actually faster to use the green lane. Except what you want to do is you want to practice some sort of rollout. And this is where it's smart to just go into the sandbox and practice yourself. And if you want to do this on the actual map, you go into sandbox, you press F7, change level, street _ test. And now you can suddenly move around on this actual map and practice actual representing things. So let's test this in an actual scenario. So now we want to get to this point as fast as possible. And the natural reaction is to use the blue lane. But because the blue lane got pushed in and our green lane is much further up, we could use the zipline speed boost on the green lane and then use zipline momentum to end up in this spot faster. So let's try. Oh, there we go. See that? Because I pressed control and then I sideways dashed from the zipline, I am now at the blue lane in just a few seconds. I highly recommend getting into the sandbox, practicing movement, And okay, we're almost done here, but I'm going to show one more thing, and it's something I use a lot. And this is especially useful for my bomb beep up as well. So there are a lot of jump pads on this map, some more useful than others. To me, the most useful jump pad is the ones on this section. So that will be here and here, meaning that it will always be the middle right lane on both sides of the map. So for instance, if I get this blue lane here, or green if I'm playing the other side, when I play Bebop, what I will do is when I start the game, I actually don't zipline to the lane. I press control here and dash. I go out this way, and then I jump up here, and I get on this jump pad. And the reason for that is because when you play Bebop, you want to build bomb stacks by putting your bomb on the enemy. So I basically just take this jump pad here, I go straight in, I put a bomb on the enemy and do one heavy melee, and then I roll back to safety. And that creates a lot of pressure on the enemy straight from the get-go. And usually they don't expect it at all either. Another extremely useful scenario for this jump pad, which is also why I think it's super important to have a good ganker playing the right lane, is that you have this rope here that leads straight to this jump pad, and you're instantly in this lane. And that is both right lanes. So if you are playing a right lane, you should always be wary of how far up the enemy is pushed in the neighboring lane, because you can be there in under 10 seconds. Like if they are pushing your Guardian, you can be here, you can do a dash slide, and you can run in here, and you're already here. And you can gank. Super fast, really smooth. It's really good for Lash, for instance, because he struggles with having a lot of air momentum early on because he needs levels on his grapple or even superior stamina. But this is a really good jump pad to use for that specific thing. All right, that was my beginner's guide to movement. I hope this levels up your experience when playing Deadlock. Feel free to leave a comment down below what you thought of the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily guides and content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!